Welcome to the Security Weekly News, episode 127, take 2. Nuclear weapons, astrology made simple, G7, cyber games, and more. All this and Jason Wood on this edition of Security Weekly News.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News. Cybercriminals are working overtime. They're leveraging activity around the COVID vaccine to disguise phishing attacks, hoping to steal money or personal information from your employees or customers. The Barracuda Email Threat Scanner is a free tool you can use right now to help protect your business and ultimately your reputation. The Barracuda Email Threat Scanner analyzes your Office 365 accounts and identifies malicious emails that slip past your gateway and into inboxes. Find the cybersecurity threats hiding in your Office 365 email. Use the Barracuda Email Threat Scanner for free right now at securityweekly.com/Barracuda.
Tis the week of 13 June, and we're back and rolling. Let's see what's happening in the news. So White Hat Security reported that the window of exposure, so I'll be honest, I had not heard this term before. It makes sense. It sounds like a term I would have made up, but the window of exposure, which is the time a sector remains vulnerable to a known exploit. So, I mean, it makes sense, and I had heard of it in context. I just never heard anybody use the term. But it's how long after something is known until it's actually fixed, I guess. So basically, they said that this measure was climbing for the utility sector. And that makes sense too. In fact, the number climbed from 55% to 67%. Now, the article I put up didn't really say what that means. Like, is it a percentage of total time or I don't know. So, but it's a 12% increase, which doesn't shock me because the utility industry is being heavily targeted by people. And as they find these kind of exploits, they are hard to fix. So basically, White Hat said that these industries have had to shift legacy systems online quickly. And most of these legacy systems are well suited for agent operations. I mean, if you know the Purdue model, which is often used in ICS and all these kind of things, you know that the OT network, which is the operational technology network, that's where these legacy systems sit. And it's not supposed to be connected to anything other than just a controller machine through a firewall. And there was never any inclination for this to be connected to the interwebs. So basically what happened was all of a sudden, and this happened very quickly, all of these things are either being connected to said interwebs so they can be updated or because they need to be monitored or because now we want to move our operators all to New Jersey and they're going to run all the nuclear plants from one trailer house sitting off the Jersey Turnpike. And we added IoT devices to these networks. So all of a sudden, instead of putting in old-fashioned valves that you turn with a wrench, they're putting in valves that are controlled by Bluetooth and that have internet accessibility and can be monitored as such. So even just connecting it to the regular corporate network, which was something that the Purdue model did not advocate, was going to create an opportunity for bad actors who are already in the corporate network, which has been phished or credential stuffed or whatever. So basically, this is just going to keep happening until people realize that their old security through obscurity models and the fact that the system was built in 1983 and runs on Unix is not going to protect them from modern concerted hacking efforts. So enough said. We all know that, but I just wanted to report on that story. The Acadian, I think that's how you say it, the Acadian Provisioning Manager is used as a provisioning component for the Cisco Unified Communications environment. So this is a big deal. So this is a kind of another supply chain-y kind of feeling thing. But this is an application or an appliance tool that has 4 big vulnerabilities which can allow remote code execution. So Acadian basically is what you use to provision all of your unified communication equipment across your enterprise. So not just locally, but across the entire enterprise and which could be across the world. So the combination of these 4 exploits can be used to get root shell on the Acadian device, which then allows you to use the device to push out pretty much any sort of Linux-based thing that you want, which would include frameworks or crypto miners or ransomware or something that combines all those things. I mean, why not build your framework to crypto mine for a while and then ransomware? I mean, money coming from all directions. In addition, the security researchers found that credentials were stored in clear text on the system. And this is a common problem on Cisco devices as well. You may not have ever thought about that, but if you have access to the Cisco confs, a lot of times you'll look at them and you'll see usernames and passwords in clear text. And, so you run that old service password encryption command on Cisco, and that goes through and sort of encrypts them so that at least they're not just obvious. But anyway, for this one, there is a clear text credential for the MariaDB. So basically, Rapid7 got a root shell using one of the exploits. Then listen to this. They catted an etc password file, saw Acadian user as a username. It sounds really 1999 right about then. And then they trolled the home directory for Acadian user, which they found in the etc password, and they found conf scripts there that contain clear text passwords. And the password was Acadian with an H. Actually, that was Acadian password. So I went to look to make sure the story wasn't from 1999. I was like, did this just pop up from Wayback Machine or something? So anyway, if you're using Acadian, as the thing always said, it's as the thing from the Fantastic Four always said, it's mitigation time. So since I don't think there's a patch for this, so you need to worry about this if you're using this tool. Good old Pinchy Spider is got another news story this week. They really know how to get your attention. So REvil, which we often call Pinchy Spider, apparently decided to hit some nuclear weapon sites, or that's nuclear for you, George Bush, some nuclear weapon sites. Specifically, what they hit was the DOE, National Nuclear Security Administration, subcontractor. Yeah. So now Pinchy Spider has become kind of a franchise, and they offer ransomware as a service and other tools like that. So it's not clear if they're acting on their own behalf or they've been, hired by, somebody else to do this. But the NNSA's website has actually been down since the 3rd of June. And a company statement that was recovered said that Sol Orients, which is the name of the company that they were reporting on, had an incident in May of 2021 that impacted their network environment. They went on to say that an unauthorized individual acquired certain documents from their systems. Now, the shadowy Sol Orients company had posted, and they were doing this in the story, they posted some job listing that definitely sounded like nuclear weapons. So literally the ad says, Senior Nuclear Weapons Systems Subject Matter Expert with 20 years of experience with weapons like the W80-4. And if you don't know what a W80-4 is, yeah, that's a nuclear weapon. I mean, this is another kind of supply chain threat, though, that's not code related, but it's vendor related. I mean, I worked in a shadowy facility that was not owned by the government, but worked for the government. No way we worked for I can't even say that. But we had hundreds, if not thousands of vendors, and all the vendors had vendors and contractors and subcontractors and subcontractors and subcontractors who hired vendors. All those people were involved in this facility. So as those companies all get entangled into this big mesh, and then now if you work for any government contractor right now, and I do, that they're sucking you into this mesh because they require you to be connected, and you have to have this access and that access, just to even be, and I'm a subcontractor and still required to actually access certain systems on their site. And, so that vending machine that you put in at the nuclear weapons plant so people can go buy a soda before the end of the world, uses port 23 TCP to do order requests and, temperature reports and things like that. So it might be actually kind of a threat when it's sitting next to an LGM-30G. And if you don't know what an LGM-30G, I bet you can guess that's a land-based intercontinental missile that has MIRVing capabilities with enough firepower to create a dystopian sci-fi universe. Maybe, or maybe something worse, for the children. But you might note that the technology in that device that I just mentioned was from the 1960s, but it's still in use. So, just saying. The ever-popular G7 meetings were held over the weekend. And all the players were there. Vlad, Joe, Boris. Wait, are all these guys Russians? It's like Vladimir, Joe, Boris, and no, they're not. Joe and Boris are not Russians. Only one of them is actually a Russian, and that's Vlad. One of them is from Delaware, and the other one was born in New York. So, you figure out the Vlad is the one that rides horses shirtless through the Russian countryside. So we should have more of that from our politicians. I think Joe Biden should go out and wear shirtless horse riding or something. Or maybe something different, like shirtless Harley riding or something would be more. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, the G7, which has this fancy meeting once a year so that everybody can get together and drink champagne with the Queen or the King or whatever other local dignitary is around to provide landing space for your private jet, called on all the G7 states to urgently, and this was what they said, and Vlad was there while they were saying this, urgently identify and disrupt ransomware criminal networks operating from within their borders and hold those networks accountable for their actions. And yes, Mr. Putin was there. And just like back in the Cold War, the Russians said, "Niet." That they denied everything, that there was no hacking in Russia, there was no ransomware gangs in Russia, that Russia had nothing to do with any of it. Who can tell who these criminals are? They may be located in Florida. He didn't actually say all that, but that's kind of what he was saying. He said something in Russian, which was probably more like, all this is a waste of my time, bring me a vodka. But it's kind of like pro wrestling where you have to have a bad guy and a baby face, you know those terms? My grandfather watched pro wrestling. But otherwise, the story is way too complicated for the average viewer if you don't have a bad guy and a baby face, so it keeps it simple. Meanwhile, in a bunker somewhere, a shadowy Boris Badenov opened his dusty eyes and said, "Must ransomware moose and squirrel." Yeah, that's my Boris Badenov voice. In April, the U.S. Cyber Games announced a month-long attempt to find 20 elite American cyber pros. This sounds like a comic book thing. 20 elite American cyber pros between the ages of 18 and 26 who will make up the first U.S. cyber team for the international cyber competition in Greece. Wow, that sounds fun. If I was between 18 and 26 years old, I would be excited. They said they were also looking for coaches, sponsors, and fans who wanted to promote things. And they have links in the article I put up. Actually, I put a link to the website for this thing up. Which would let you volunteer to get involved if you want to help us. So it is good to see that they're starting to do things like sports in the same way that sports operates. This program is apparently backed by NIST and is run out of the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education Office, which is called NICE at NIST. So if you want to get involved, now's your chance. Imagine if when you were in high school and you got to be a big shot because you were a good C coder instead of you were good at hitting balls with sticks, and then instead of getting hit by sticks because you were good at writing C code. Wouldn't that have been, what a world that would be? But alas, we all missed that boat. But maybe that day is coming, and there'll be like programmers starting around campus going, "Hey, get out of my way." Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it probably already is like that. Instagram patched a flaw that would allow viewing of private account material, including archive posts and stories posted without having to actually follow the account. The issue was first disclosed in April to Facebook, who owns Instagram, and was patched, this morning. It resulted in a $30,000 bug bounty for Mayur Furtada, who found the problem. The attack basically was pretty straightforward if you could figure out the media identifier. So basically what he was doing was he rolled up a post request and took a media identifier, which you could brute force. You could figure these out. And he put that in a post request, and then that allowed him to extract the documents through that post request. That went around the security and allowed the recovery of private material from private groups. I'll be honest, when I see the term private group on Facebook or Instagram or any of those kind of things, I'm like, if you post stuff on here and you think this is private, well, good luck with that. Seriously. When we return, Jason Wood.
As technology continues to evolve and expand, so have the attackers that put our critical systems in jeopardy. Core Impact from Core Security is a penetration testing tool that safely finds vulnerabilities using the same techniques of adversaries, with certified exploits and wizards that guide you through critical pen tests while maximizing the time of advanced testers by automating their routines. With Core Security, you can safeguard your infrastructure by limiting access, detecting threats, testing for security weaknesses, and efficiently monitoring data. Visit securityweekly.com/core security.
If you're looking for Jason Wood, you are just as likely to find him under the sea as in front of a computer. Jason is one of the world's most avid sea cucumber whisperers. These gentle creatures lay on the bottom of the ocean. Yes, that's actually all they do. But Jason realized that often their lack of movement was not due to them not having fins or legs and basically looking like a cucumber. They don't even have any other appendages. But it was a deep, searing angst that he is trying to cure. Jason hopes that one day he'll get one to open up and live a better life. Over to you, Jason.
I have no response to that. I'm trying to come up with something, and I'm just like, I got nothing.
That's my goal in life.
It worked. You got me this time for sure. So, last week we were talking a bit about ransomware. We were always talking about ransomware. It's all over the news and stuff like that, particularly right now. But I mentioned last week that whether or not a ransomware victim pays out a ransom is largely up to them. It's their choice. The government discourages it, but whatever. It's your situation. While this is still the case, I found a blog post by Graham Cluley that maybe puts a bit of an asterisk, actually kind of a large asterisk on that statement. Basically, he reported yesterday that JBS, the meat processing company, is likely going to take some heat for paying out an $11 million ransom to our friends at Pinchy Spider or REvil. Basically, the U.S. Congress has decided to take notice and has come calling on JBS. Now, obviously, ransomware has really got everybody's attention because of some of the high-impact organizations that have been hit. Things like shutting down fuel supply to the eastern United States, shutting down gasoline fuel supply, and interrupting food supplies, with JBS. Plus, Doug just talked about, little things like nuclear weapons and whatnot. So it's got folks' attention. Even the G7 is getting into it. They've released their statement. They're going to get tough on this stuff. Their press release is their first play at getting tough, I guess. JBS, though, they're getting a different sort of attention now. A number of the systems, just, as a refresher, were locked up late last month with the REvil ransomware. The company, as part of their response, decided to pay out $11 million, basically to protect against future types of damage or something or other coming out of this. According to some of the information I read, the JBS USA team was able or decided they were able to restore everything from backup without paying out the ransom, but the company decided to pay it out to prevent data being released or whatever other impacts were being threatened by that. So now they've received a request basically from Representative Carolyn Maloney. She is the chairperson of the Oversight and Reform Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives, and has sent them a letter asking for a lengthy bit of documentation. The things that she's asked for to be sent to the committee by June 24th, I believe, was the date. Basically, it kind of goes as follows. Just, any information they have about the discovery of the intrusion, all communications with the attackers and discussions about negotiations and things like that. Any consultation with any third parties, whether they are law enforcement or security consultants or whatever, about whether or not they should pay it, how they bought cryptocurrency of any form, any checks they did to see, hey, is this a sanctioned group? Because that is a case where it becomes illegal if you send this money to a sanctioned group. And any internal communications about discussion about whether or not to pay the ransom, and finally any discussion or documentation about the use of decryption utilities and how they worked and all of that other stuff. So a huge list of stuff, and there's like a 2-page letter, and then there's probably about 6 pages of details and legalese that goes along with this, describing what it is they want, what is a document, and that may mean a text message, for example. They need to send all of this, needs to be indexed and all this other fancy stuff. So, by the 24th. They're getting, this is going to be an uncomfortable situation. We've already seen this happen with Colonial Pipeline. They've gotten called out to testify, their CEO to testify in front of Congress. And according to bankinfosecurity.com, Colonial Pipeline has also received this request from Representative Maloney. So I think this is really kind of a rough spot to be in. I mean, you get into a ransomware intrusion, you have, your business is being beat up, you're being threatened with all kinds of data being released, you can't process or do anything that your business is supposed to do because that's been all ransomed, and you have to respond back in some way. Particularly, this becomes a problem when the bad guys they go all big game hunting, where they go for the stuff that really matters and prevents you from operating at all. JBS and Colonial Pipeline, obviously, these are companies that have a massive impact when they have any disruptions. Things like food and energy supplies are a big deal to everybody, countries and individuals right on down the line, and we saw lots of impact there. So they fall under huge pressure to get things back up and going as soon as possible, so that there's no disruption to daily life, no increase in prices and food supply or whatever it is. That's what they're being pressured on, and never let this happen again. And so now on the other side of this, they're getting a different sort of heat. And they, this is going to be something that I think is a concern to these companies. And I know I've sat in meetings where we've discussed, what happens if Congress comes calling? Just is never fun. It sounds like both companies had the means, at least technically, to restore their operations, but they paid off the bad guys in part to avoid any kind of future repercussions from the threat actors releasing information or conducting future intrusions. The government's concern in this, though, is understandable. The more profitable this is, the more intrusions we're going to have, the more impact we're going to have as different organizations get ransomed, as the ransomware operators come back because, well, we know you're willing to pay, so let's hit you again 6 months later and see if we can get some more money out of you. Like I said, the Department of Justice, they encourage us victims not to pay out any kind of ransom. I can think of a number of us here on Security Weekly that have said the same thing for the same reasons. But this is a really rough situation for companies to navigate, and I think it's only going to get rougher as you see how these investigations play out. You go through this experience, and now the U.S. Congress is coming in to get involved, ask you all kinds of rough questions, beat you up, make statements about questioning capabilities and whether somebody is competent and things like that. So this is going to be interesting to see, I think, because companies, as they take into account things like, well, do we have the money to pay the ransom? Do we have the ability to withstand whatever fallout of these other things are being threatened? Oh, can we take the heat that's going to come on us from our government if they don't like how we're going to handle this in some way? And so it's kind of a rough, like I said, kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. You get into that situation where you're getting called in front of Congress, you've got another hostile group potentially asking you questions about what you did. I often wonder, honestly, are these committees, are they trying to make things better or not? Or are they just trying to sound tough on camera? But it is interesting to read. I've got the links in the show notes to a couple different articles. One of them contains the link to the letter sent by by Representative Maloney to JBS. So if you're interested in that, go take a look. It is just kind of wild to watch this play out as we have, the infection, the ransom, all of the stuff that happens during that time, and now we're getting into the fallout of that and how our government's going to respond to that. And it's almost like, in some ways, I fear the idea of victims being victimized twice, if you will. Let's beat you up again. In the meantime, as we're looking at this, I look at ransomware intrusions all the time. Best advice I have for you, remove things like RDP and SMB from the internet. Use multi-factor authentication, patch your stuff, and watch out for those VPN devices. The list goes on and on. But these groups definitely take advantage of the easy way to get access into an organization. So, if you keep raising that bar up, you increase your chances of getting out, particularly with some of these affiliate groups. Their skill level varies quite a bit depending on which affiliate is carrying out an operation. So, those are some defenses and things you can do, but, it's also something to keep in mind what happens if you get hit and somebody doesn't like how you responded to this.
Dr. White, are you now, or have you ever been associated with or written any lines of Fortran code, and are you willing to name the names of other people that you do know who are writing Fortran code right now as we speak? Yeah, that's what Congress is like, and then you're like, well, why is this relevant? But yeah, I've been there. So yeah, it's a weird thing. And a lot of it's just grandstanding to try to get political advantage. It doesn't really, I mean, to be not cynical, I do think Congress is sometimes trying to gather real information and so forth, but there's an awful lot of grandstanding that goes on in those kind of hearings too, as I was just referencing, good old McCarthy hearings in the 50s with Richard Milhouse Nixon sitting up there as on the podium, and they're calling people out and saying you're a communist, and your friend said you were a communist, and do you know any other communists? And the person sitting there is going, I'm not really a communist. I just went to this party one time, and it was like there were maybe some communists there, and like, who were they? Give us their names, And it's like, and I would have said, well, Richard Milhouse Nixon, but yeah, that's. Then you disappear. All right. And finally, thank you, Jason. And finally, TikTok influencer Maren Altman has garnered over 1 million followers by claiming that she hates TikTok and that she's a very serious person. Wait for it. But she claims, in all her seriousness and hatred of TikTok, that she can use astrology, not astronomy, astrology, although astronomy wouldn't work either, to predict cryptocurrency values, because crypto has a verifiable birth date and subsequently can have an astrological chart. So those Doge coins you're holding may actually have an astrological chart behind them that you could use to predict the value in the future. Now, if you're unclear, astrology, which is somehow the alignment of things out in the universe at the moment of your birth, is used to predict the future. Yeah, that's called pseudoscience. But if you believe it, and I have some maps that is a guide to the lost treasure of El Taco Bella, and I can sell it to you for the low price of only $19.99 today only. Astrology is fake. Get your shots. Soon I can stop saying in the time of plague. Thanks, Jason. Thank you, Gus. Good job. See you Friday on the Security Weekly News Wrap-Up Show.